A little girl runs away to a neighbor's house with a baby in her arms. When the neighbor calls the police, what they find is heartbreaking. The autumn wind swept through the quiet street of Maple Lane, rustling the yellowed leaves clinging to the trees that lined the row of townhouses. It was nearly 10 o'clock, and one by one, the porch lights dimmed, casting the neighborhood in a cozy, hushed darkness. Maple Lane was the kind of street where children roamed free by day, their laughter and shouts echoing against the houses, only to be replaced by the stillness of a close-knit community at night. But on this particular evening, that silence was broken. A small figure emerged from the shadows, her steps soft but hurried, her breath fogging in the cool night air. 7-year-old Emma Harper held her baby brother close to her chest, his little face peeking out from beneath a thin, worn blanket. She was shivering, partly from the chill but mostly from fear. She knew her mother wouldn't want her leaving the house, especially not at night, but she didn't know what else to do. Little Noah hadn't stopped crying all day, and now his cries had become faint whimpers, his tiny body growing weaker by the hour. Emma's feet stumbled as she crossed the lawn to her neighbor's house. Mr. Martin, a quiet older man with silver hair, lived here alone. She'd often seen him working in his yard or taking walks down the street, but he never seemed to pay much attention to anyone. Tonight, though, she was out of options. Taking a shaky breath, she knocked on his door, her tiny fist barely making a sound. She waited a moment, casting anxious glances around the dimly lit street, clutching Noah a little closer. When no one answered, she knocked again, a bit harder this time. Finally, she heard the soft shuffle of footsteps on the other side. The door opened to reveal Mr. Martin, his expression shifting from groggy confusion to shock as he looked down at Emma, standing there in her pajamas with Noah cradled in her arms. "Emma," he asked, his voice rough with sleep, "what on earth are you doing out here? And is that your brother?" She nodded, her eyes wide and fearful. "Please, Mr. Martin," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need help." He ushered her inside immediately, concern deepening in his eyes as he noticed how frail and pale the baby looked. The warmth of the house hit her like a wave, and she felt her limbs relax just a bit. But she still wouldn't let go of Noah. "Sit down," Mr. Martin said gently, guiding her to a chair and reaching for his phone. "Let me call someone. We need to get you both some help." His hands trembled as he dialed, trying to make sense of the situation. "No!" Emma's voice came out sharper than she'd intended, and she clutched Noah even tighter. She looked up at Mr. Martin with pleading eyes. "Don't call the police. They'll take us away. They'll take Noah." Mr. Martin paused, taken aback by the desperation in her voice. "Emma, you're both freezing. I can't just sit here and do nothing." But seeing her fear, he softened, placing the phone down for the moment. He walked over, kneeling beside her, his voice gentle. "Can you tell me what's going on, Emma?" She bit her lip, glancing down at Noah, his tiny face half hidden by the blanket. He looked so small, so fragile. "Mom, she's sick. She's been sleeping a lot, and she doesn't wake up sometimes, not when I call her." Emma's voice cracked, and she wiped at her eyes with one hand. "Noah was crying all day. I tried to help him, but I don't know how." Mr. Martin's heart twisted. "Emma, have you been taking care of Noah all by yourself?" She nodded, a hint of pride and sorrow in her small face. "I try my best. I feed him and change him when I can. But he's so little." Her voice softened, her words carrying a weight far beyond her years. Mr. Martin didn't hesitate any longer. He picked up the phone again, dialing the local police station with a calm resolve, despite Emma's protests. "I'm just getting someone to help, sweetheart. We're not going to let anyone take you away. Promise." Within minutes, the police arrived. 2 officers stepped inside, their expressions shifting from professional to deeply concerned as they took in the sight of Emma clutching her baby brother. They gently asked her a few questions, and though she was scared, she answered, her words halting but clear. In the following hours, a picture of Emma and Noah's life came into focus. The officers learned that Emma had been caring for her brother for weeks, if not months, as her mother's health deteriorated. Sarah Harper, though once a doting mother, had become a ghost of herself, plagued by a mental illness that kept her detached from the reality of her children's needs. No one on Maple Lane had realized just how severe her situation was. Emma had hidden it well, fearing what might happen if someone found out. Mr. Martin stayed by Emma's side the entire time, his presence a steady comfort as the officers gathered information and arranged for the children to be examined by a doctor. He didn't leave, even when a social worker arrived and gently explained that Emma and Noah would need a safe place to stay while their mother received help. Emma's grip on Noah tightened again at this news, but Mr. Martin was quick to reassure her. "They'll be safe, Emma. You did the right thing, coming here tonight," he said, his voice steady. "You're not alone anymore. We're all going to help you, all right?" For the first time that night, Emma allowed herself to believe it might be true. She nodded, clutching Noah close as she looked up at Mr. Martin with a glimmer of hope in her tired eyes. As she and Noah were taken to a foster home for the night, Emma glanced back one last time. Mr. Martin stood in the doorway, watching her go with a solemn expression, a silent promise in his gaze. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, she felt like she didn't have to bear the weight of the world alone. The morning dawned gray, casting a gentle light over Mrs. Turner's cozy home. Emma stirred from sleep, blinking as she took in her unfamiliar surroundings. A room painted a soft, calming blue, with a small bed dressed in a thick, floral quilt and a crib by the window where Noah lay, bundled warmly. In the room's corner, a small lamp cast a warm glow over a rocking chair and a stack of books on a side table. For the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't wake to the sound of Noah's cries or to the sense of dread that had often weighed on her at home. Mrs. Turner, whom she'd met only the night before, was already in the kitchen, the scent of warm oatmeal and cinnamon filling the house. As Emma shuffled out of her room, she noticed Noah was still sleeping soundly, a small miracle. She felt strange, almost guilty, for enjoying the comfort of the bed and the promise of breakfast. She was so used to being responsible for Noah and to going without, that the thought of being taken care of felt almost wrong. "Good morning, Emma," Mrs. Turner greeted her gently, her eyes bright with warmth. "Did you sleep well?" Emma nodded, too shy to say much, and slipped into the chair that Mrs. Turner pulled out for her. She kept glancing over her shoulder to make sure Noah was still in the crib, and when Mrs. Turner noticed, she offered a reassuring smile. "I'll keep an ear out for him, sweetheart. He'll be all right." Though still anxious, Emma relaxed slightly and spooned her oatmeal in silence, sneaking occasional glances at Mrs. Turner as she bustled around the kitchen. Her movements were careful and practiced, the easy confidence of someone used to nurturing, and Emma felt a strange comfort in it. A part of her wanted to open up, to ask why she and Noah were here, what would happen to them now, but she didn't have the words for those questions, or the courage to ask them. After breakfast, Mrs. Turner suggested taking a walk to the nearby park. She bundled Noah carefully in a soft blanket, wrapping him warmly and tucking him into a stroller she kept in the hallway. For Emma, she handed over a knitted scarf and a hat that must have belonged to another child once. Emma took it with a quiet thank you, trying to avoid the pity she thought she saw in Mrs. Turner's gaze. The park wasn't far, just a few blocks away, and the walk was peaceful. The sound of rustling leaves and the crisp autumn air brought a sense of calm that Emma hadn't felt in a long time. She watched Mrs. Turner push the stroller with a quiet determination, talking to her about the trees and pointing out squirrels that darted across the path. Emma nodded politely, though her mind wandered as she looked at the families scattered around the park, parents laughing with their children, kids shouting as they ran across the playground. She wondered if they ever felt scared, if they ever had to take care of anyone other than themselves. Once they reached the playground, Mrs. Turner parked the stroller near a bench and gestured to the swings, a gentle encouragement in her eyes. "Why don't you go play for a little while, Emma? I'll watch Noah for you." Emma glanced uncertainly at Noah, her protective instinct kicking in. She bit her lip, torn between staying close to him and the temptation of the swings that beckoned from a few steps away. Mrs. Turner noticed her hesitation and gave her a reassuring nod. "I'll be right here. I won't take my eyes off him." Finally, Emma allowed herself to go to the swings. She walked over, feeling shy and unsure, and took a seat. She started swinging slowly, unsure of how to feel, her heart torn between guilt and the unfamiliar sense of freedom. With each push of her feet, she began to feel lighter, the memories of long, difficult days at home fading into the background. She caught herself smiling, just a little, as she watched the trees blur past. When she eventually returned to the bench, Mrs. Turner smiled and handed her Noah, who had slept peacefully the entire time. "He missed you, I think," she said softly, and Emma's cheeks flushed with a mixture of pride and sadness. She hugged Noah close, feeling a familiar protectiveness settle back over her. Back at Mrs. Turner's house, there was a visitor waiting for them. A woman with kind eyes and a notebook sat in the living room, her face lighting up when Emma and Noah entered. She stood, holding out her hand to introduce herself. "Hello, Emma. I'm Miss Barlow. I'm here to help you and your brother, and I was hoping we could talk for a bit." Emma glanced at Mrs. Turner, who gave her a reassuring nod. Reluctantly, she followed Miss Barlow to a quiet corner of the living room, taking a seat across from her on a soft armchair. She kept Noah on her lap, holding him protectively, her gaze wary as she met Miss Barlow's gentle eyes. They talked for a while, at first about simple things like her favorite games, her school, and the things she liked to do. Emma gave short, hesitant answers, her mind always half on Noah and what Miss Barlow might ask next. But then the questions shifted, becoming a little harder to answer. "Hey, Emma, can you tell me about your mom?" Miss Barlow's voice was soft, understanding. Emma hesitated, glancing down at Noah, who was now stirring in her arms. She thought about the countless days and nights spent alone with him, her mother lying silent in her bedroom, lost to a world that Emma couldn't reach. She swallowed, her voice barely a whisper as she answered, She's tired. She sleeps a lot. And sometimes she's sad." Miss Barlow nodded, her expression kind but serious. "That must have been very hard for you, Emma. You've been so brave, taking care of your brother." Hearing the words stirred something deep inside her, a knot of emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel. She didn't want to be brave, didn't want to be responsible. She wanted to be a child, to play and laugh without a worry in the world. Tears pricked at her eyes, and she quickly blinked them away, but Miss Barlow saw. "We're here to help you now," she said gently. "You don't have to do this alone anymore." A mixture of relief and sadness washed over Emma as she heard those words. She had spent so long feeling like she had to be the one holding everything together, that the idea of sharing that weight with someone else felt strange, almost impossible. But Miss Barlow's words planted a seed of hope, a tiny spark that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Over the next few days, Emma and Noah settled into a quiet routine with Mrs. Turner. Every morning, Emma would wake to the smell of breakfast cooking, and Mrs. Turner would help her dress Noah, talking to him softly as she fed him and bundled him up for the day. In the afternoons, she took them to the park or read them stories, her voice soothing and steady. Emma found herself looking forward to those moments, to the gentle, predictable rhythm of their days together. Then, one morning, Mrs. Turner came to her with a letter in her hand, a soft smile on her face. "Emma," she said, sitting beside her, "your mom wants to see you and Noah. She's been getting some help, and she's been asking for you both." Emma's heart skipped a beat. A mixture of excitement and fear surged through her as she thought about seeing her mother again. She missed her mother's face, her voice, even the quiet sadness that had become so familiar. But part of her worried that seeing her mother would bring back all the fears and responsibilities she had tried so hard to leave behind. The day of the visit arrived quickly. Mrs. Turner helped her dress in her best clothes and brushed her hair carefully, just the way her mother used to. They drove to a small, sunlit room in the community center, where her mother was waiting, sitting by a window with her hands folded tightly in her lap. When Emma and Noah entered, Sarah Harper looked up, her eyes filling with tears as she took in the sight of her children. She looked smaller than Emma remembered, her shoulders hunched, her face drawn and tired. But there was a light in her eyes, a spark of hope and love that Emma hadn't seen in a long time. "Emma, Noah," her mother whispered, her voice choked with emotion. She reached out, her hands trembling, but she hesitated, as if afraid to come too close. Emma felt her heart pounding, a mixture of fear and longing swirling within her. She wanted to run to her mother, to feel her arms around her, to believe that everything would be okay. But a part of her held back, uncertain. She had grown used to protecting herself, to keeping her distance to avoid the hurt that had come with her mother's illness. Slowly, she took a tentative step forward, then another. Her mother's face softened, her eyes filling with tears, and she held out her hands, her expression filled with a love that Emma had almost forgotten. Finally, Emma let herself be wrapped in her mother's arms, feeling the warmth and familiarity that she had missed so desperately. She felt her mother's tears on her shoulder, her quiet apologies whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry, Emma," her mother whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to leave you, to make you take care of everything. I love you so much. Both of you." Emma's heart ached with a mixture of relief and sorrow. She held Noah close, feeling the weight of all the moments she had spent alone, all the nights she had stayed awake, watching over her brother. And as her mother's arms tightened around them, she allowed herself, for the first time, to believe that maybe things could be different. They sat together in silence, a family reunited, connected by the pain and love that had brought them back to each other. For the first time, Emma felt the possibility of a new beginning, a future where she didn't have to be strong all alone. The weeks that followed Emma and Noah's reunion with their mother, Sarah, were filled with cautious hope, small steps forward, and sometimes heartbreaking setbacks. Sarah had been placed in a residential treatment center for those struggling with mental health issues, where she could receive structured support and therapy. This wasn't the life Sarah had envisioned for herself or her children, but it was a necessary step toward recovery and building a stable life for them. Every Saturday, Mrs. Turner would bring Emma and Noah to visit her in the brightly lit visitors' room of the center. At first, Emma felt a blend of relief and resentment toward her mother, a whirlpool of emotions she didn't know how to express. Each visit brought a new wave of uncertainty and tension. There were days when her mother seemed almost like the person she remembered, her eyes clearer, her voice steadier. And then there were other days, harder days, when her mother seemed distant, her gaze lost in some unreachable place. Those days reminded Emma of the dark times back at home, and despite her young age, she understood on some level that recovery would be a long journey. One Saturday, Mrs. Turner dressed Emma and Noah warmly, slipping a little flowered hair clip into Emma's hair with a reassuring smile. "Your mom will be so happy to see you today," she said, her voice as gentle as ever. "She's been doing really well, and she asked me to bring something special for you both." When they arrived at the treatment center, Sarah was waiting in the visitor's room, holding a colorful picture book and a small, stuffed elephant for Noah. Her face lit up when she saw them, and she immediately held out her arms. Emma walked slowly toward her, still unsure but willing to give her mother another chance. As she sat beside her mother, she felt Sarah gently stroke her hair, a gesture so familiar yet long forgotten. "I missed you both so much," Sarah murmured, her voice full of quiet emotion. She held up the book and opened it, showing them the bright, cheerful illustrations. It was a simple story, but as Sarah read, her voice was steady and soothing, filling the room with warmth. Emma couldn't remember the last time her mother had read to her, and she leaned in, listening to each word, letting the sound of her mother's voice wash over her like a lullaby. For a while, everything felt almost normal, as if they were just any family sharing a quiet moment together. But as Sarah finished the story, her voice faltered, and she looked at Emma with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Emma," she whispered, the apology heavy with regret. "I know I wasn't there for you and Noah the way I should have been. I'm getting help now, but I know it's been hard for both of you." Emma looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. She wanted to tell her mother everything, to explain the loneliness, the fear, the nights she'd spent awake, trying to soothe Noah while her mother lay lost in her own pain. But she didn't know how to say those things. Instead, she simply nodded, a small gesture of forgiveness and understanding. The visits became a new routine, each one a step closer to a fragile but growing bond between Emma, Noah, and Sarah. Emma found herself looking forward to these moments, to seeing her mother smile, to feeling her warmth, even if it was only for a few hours each week. But she also began to realize that her life outside the treatment center was growing, too. She had her own routines now, school days filled with lessons and recess, new friends who shared their snacks with her, and the comforting presence of Mrs. Turner, who had become something like a second mother. Yet, despite the semblance of stability, there was always an undercurrent of tension. Emma knew that her mother's progress was fragile, that each day was a struggle. She overheard the social worker talking to Mrs. Turner about it one afternoon, her voice low but worried. "Sarah's making strides, but the reality is, recovery is complicated," Miss Barlow had said, glancing at Emma as if she didn't realize the girl was listening. "It's a long road, and there's no guarantee." Emma didn't understand everything they said, but she grasped the main point. Her mother's return to their lives wasn't certain. That knowledge sat heavily in her heart, a constant reminder of the uncertainty that shadowed her days. Then, one evening, Mrs. Turner gathered Emma and Noah in the living room. She sat beside Emma on the sofa, holding her hand gently, as if preparing her for difficult news. "Emma, there's something we need to talk about," she began, her tone serious but kind. "The doctors and Miss Barlow have been working with your mother, but they feel it might be best if you and Noah stay with a family that can give you both the care you need." Emma's heart dropped, and she felt her chest tighten. "But what about Mom? Can't she take care of us?" Mrs. Turner hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Your mom is trying very hard, Emma. She loves you and Noah so much, but sometimes love isn't enough. She needs time to get better, and it might be a long time." Emma's mind raced, a flood of emotions rising within her. She couldn't imagine life without her mother, even with all the sadness and uncertainty. Yet she couldn't deny the comfort she felt with Mrs. Turner, the warmth and safety that she had started to depend on. Still, the thought of being separated from her mother for good felt like losing a piece of herself. What if I can help her get better?" Emma asked, her voice small and trembling. Mrs. Turner gave her a gentle smile, her eyes filled with a sadness that Emma didn't quite understand. "You've done more than enough, Emma. But this is something your mom has to do on her own." The next visit with Sarah was different. Emma felt the weight of Mrs. Turner's words pressing down on her as she sat beside her mother, clutching Noah tightly. Sarah noticed the change and reached out, her hand resting lightly on Emma's shoulder. "Is something wrong, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, her voice full of concern. Emma hesitated, her gaze fixed on her mother's face. Are you going to get better, Mom?" The question hung heavily in the air, and Sarah's face crumpled. She pulled Emma close, wrapping her arms around her. "I'm trying, Emma. I really am. But I need more time. I want you to be safe and happy, even if that means you have to stay somewhere else for now." Tears pricked at Emma's eyes as she buried her face in her mother's shoulder. The words were both a promise and a farewell, and she felt the weight of that reality settling deep within her heart. She didn't want to let go, didn't want to accept that her life might change in ways she couldn't control. But part of her also understood, even at her young age, that love sometimes meant letting go. In the weeks that followed, Emma and Noah were introduced to the Grays, a kind couple who had agreed to be their foster parents. Mr. and Mrs. Gray lived on the outskirts of town, in a big house with a wide, open yard where Emma could run and play. They were warm and welcoming, treating Emma and Noah with a gentle kindness that made the transition easier, though Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow betraying her mother. The first few nights in the Grays' home were difficult. Emma found herself lying awake, staring at the ceiling, missing her mother's voice, her touch, even the quiet sadness that had once filled their small apartment. She worried about her mother, wondered if she was getting better, if she was lonely, if she missed them as much as she missed her. One evening, Mrs. Gray came into her room, sitting beside her on the edge of the bed. "Emma, I know this is hard for you. It's okay to miss your mom, but I want you to know that she's very proud of you. She wants you to be safe and happy, and that's what we want too." Emma nodded, feeling a strange sense of comfort in Mrs. Gray's words. She still missed her mother deeply, But she was starting to understand that being loved by someone new didn't mean she was abandoning her mother. It was a different kind of love, one that allowed her to grow and heal in ways she hadn't realized she needed. Months passed, and though Emma continued to visit her mother, the visits grew fewer as Sarah focused on her own recovery. Each time they saw each other, there was a little more peace in Sarah's eyes, a little more hope. Emma found herself settling into her life with the Greys, discovering a sense of normalcy she hadn't known before. She went to school, made friends, learned to ride a bike in the big yard behind the house. She even started calling Mrs. Gray Mom, sometimes, the words slipping out naturally, bringing a soft smile to Mrs. Gray's face each time. But no matter how much she grew and changed, her mother was never far from her thoughts, a constant presence in her heart. One spring day, Emma received a letter from her mother. She opened it carefully, her hands trembling as she read the familiar handwriting. "Dear Emma and Noah," the letter began, "I'm so proud of you both. I've been working hard, and I'm getting better every day. I want you to be happy, to play and laugh and feel safe. Remember that I love you always. One day, we'll be together again. But until then, know that you're in my heart, every single day." Emma read the letter over and over, feeling a mixture of sadness and joy. She missed her mother deeply, but she understood now that sometimes love meant letting go, giving each other the space to heal and grow. She folded the letter carefully, placing it in a small box she kept under her bed. A box of memories, of the life she'd lived, and of the love that would always be a part of her. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, Emma dreamed of her mother, her heart filled with hope for the future. She knew that no matter where life took her, her mother's love would always be with her, a quiet strength guiding her forward. The day Sarah Harper was officially released from the residential treatment center was a warm, bright morning in early summer. Emma and Noah had been living with the Greys for nearly a year, and their lives had settled into a rhythm that felt almost like a new normal. Emma had grown taller, her face tanned from days spent outside playing in the big yard, and Noah, now toddling on his own, babbled his first words with the confident pride of a child who felt safe and loved. Despite the warmth and security Emma felt with the Greys, a part of her heart had always remained with her mother. She held on to the memories, cherishing them even as she slowly built new ones. That morning, when Mrs. Gray told her that her mother was ready to see them again, Emma felt an odd mixture of excitement and fear. The past year had brought her many changes, but deep down, she wondered, could her mother truly be different? And would their reunion be everything she had hoped? The reunion was planned carefully by Miss Barlow, their social worker, who met Emma and Noah with the Greys and guided them to a community center where Sarah was waiting. Emma clutched Noah's hand as they walked through the building, her heart beating faster with every step. She dreamed of this day so many times, but now that it was finally here, she didn't know what to expect. When they entered the small, sunlit room, Sarah was already there, sitting in a chair by the window. Her hair was neatly brushed, and she wore a simple dress with a floral print that Emma didn't recognize. Her face looked different too, more peaceful. The lines of worry that Emma remembered had softened. Sarah looked up as they entered, her eyes filling with tears at the sight of her children. "Oh, Emma, Noah," she whispered, her voice trembling as she held out her arms. Emma hesitated, looking to Mrs. Gray for reassurance, before stepping forward, pulling Noah along with her. When she reached her mother, she allowed herself to fall into her arms, feeling the warmth and familiarity that had been absent from her life for so long. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in an embrace that felt both fragile and powerful, as if time itself had paused to let them savor the moment. Sarah pulled back just enough to look at them, her eyes scanning their faces as if memorizing every detail. "You've both grown so much," she said, her voice filled with wonder and a hint of sadness. "I'm sorry for the time we lost, but I've worked hard to be here, to be with you both." Emma looked up at her mother, taking in the changes she saw. There was a calmness in her mother's eyes, a steadiness that hadn't been there before. Emma wanted to believe in this new version of her mother, to trust that things could be different now. But there was also a guarded part of her, a piece of her heart that held back, afraid of being hurt again. They spent the day together in the community center, playing with blocks on the floor with Noah, reading picture books, and catching up on all the little details of the past year. Sarah listened attentively as Emma told her about school, her new friends, and her favorite places to play at the Gray's house. She smiled as she listened, laughing at Emma's stories, her face lighting up in a way Emma had almost forgotten. By afternoon, as the visit neared its end, Sarah took Emma's hand, looking at her with a serious, heartfelt expression. "Emma, I know I hurt you. I know I wasn't there when you needed me most, and I'll always regret that. But I want you to know that I'm here now. I've worked hard, and I'll keep working hard, every day, to be the mother you deserve." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her voice catching as she whispered, "I missed you, Mom. I missed you too, sweetheart," Sarah replied, pulling her into a hug. "I love you, Emma, with all my heart. You and Noah are my world." In the weeks that followed, the visits continued. Each time, Sarah seemed stronger, more capable, more like the mother Emma had always needed. They met in parks, at the community center, and even at the Gray's house, where Mrs. Gray warmly welcomed Sarah, offering her tea and talking with her about Emma and Noah's progress over the past year. Emma watched as her two worlds blended, her mother and the Grays sharing laughter and stories, building a relationship that gave her hope. But as time passed, a decision loomed. Should Emma and Noah return to live with their mother? The court would soon hold a hearing to determine the next steps, and Emma's heart was torn between the love she still held for her mother and the new life she had built with the Grays. One evening, as Emma was helping Mrs. Gray in the kitchen, she finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been on her mind for weeks. "Mrs. Gray," she began, her voice hesitant, "do you think Mom's ready for us to come home?" Mrs. Gray paused, setting down the dish she was washing and turning to face Emma. She knelt down so they were at eye level, her expression thoughtful and kind. "I think your mom has worked very hard, Emma. She loves you and Noah very much, and she wants what's best for you both. But this is also your home now. Whatever happens, you'll always have a place here." Emma nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude mixed with the weight of the decision she knew she would have to make. She loved her mother, but she also loved the Grays and the life they had given her. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Emma felt a knot of nerves tighten in her stomach as they entered the courtroom. Sarah was there, looking calm and composed, sitting beside her lawyer with a determined expression. Mrs. Gray sat beside Emma, holding Noah in her lap, while Mr. Gray held Emma's hand, giving her a reassuring squeeze. The judge was a kind-looking woman with a warm voice who spoke directly to Emma, explaining that today was about finding the best solution for her and Noah. "Emma," she said gently, "I know this isn't easy, but I want you to know that your voice matters. If there's anything you want to say, anything that would help us understand how you feel, now is the time." Emma glanced at her mother, then at Mrs. Gray, feeling the weight of the room's attention. She took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper as she spoke. "I love my mom," she began, her words halting but sincere. "I missed her a lot, and I know she's worked hard to get better. But I also love living with the Grays. They make me feel safe. And Noah too." She looked at her mother, her eyes filling with tears. "I want to be with you, Mom, but I also don't want to lose the Grays. I don't want to lose this family too." There was a pause, a stillness in the room as the judge considered her words. Then, in a quiet, thoughtful tone, the judge addressed both families. "It's clear to me that Emma and Noah have two families who care deeply about them. I believe that children thrive best when they have support from everyone who loves them. I propose a shared arrangement where Sarah will gradually assume primary care while Emma and Noah remain connected to the Grays, ensuring they have a stable support system." Emma's heart lifted, relief flooding through her. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it felt right. An arrangement that would allow her to have her mother and the Grays both in her life. Sarah wiped away tears, her face filled with gratitude as she looked at the Grays. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for taking care of them, for loving them." Mrs. Gray nodded, her eyes also shining with tears. They're part of our family now too, Sarah. We'll always be here for them, and for you. The transition wasn't easy. Emma and Noah spent some nights with Sarah, others with the Grays, gradually adjusting to the shared arrangement. At first, it was confusing, a constant back and forth that made Emma feel like she belonged in two worlds. But over time, a routine developed, a balance between the love of her mother and the stability of the Grays. On the weekends, Sarah would join them at the Grays' home, and they would share meals, go on picnics, and even celebrate holidays together. It wasn't the life Emma had once imagined, but it was a life filled with love, laughter, and a sense of belonging that gave her comfort. One evening, as the sun set over the yard and she played with Noah under the fading light, Emma felt a peace she hadn't known before. She was surrounded by family. Not a traditional family, perhaps, but one that had grown from love, healing, and understanding. She looked up to see her mother, Mrs. Gray, and Mr. Gray watching her from the porch, all three smiling with a warmth that made her feel whole. She knew now that family wasn't defined by who you lived with or who gave birth to you, but by the people who loved you, who supported you, who helped you grow. And as she held Noah's hand, guiding him through the soft grass, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a deep, unwavering sense of home. The first few months of Emma and Noah's shared arrangement were filled with a mixture of joy, adjustment, and a few challenges as the two families settled into their new roles. Each family carefully balanced their time, with Sarah focusing on building a stable home environment while ensuring her children maintained their connections with the Grays. Emma, now 8, found herself blossoming under the loving presence of both families. She gained a new sense of belonging, feeling tethered to two different homes that each held a unique place in her heart. On a crisp autumn morning, Emma and Noah sat at Sarah's kitchen table, watching as she prepared breakfast. The kitchen was filled with the smell of warm oatmeal, a dash of cinnamon, and a hint of vanilla, little things that Emma was learning to appreciate as markers of home. The walls of the kitchen had recently been painted a soft yellow, and Emma had helped her mother hang small, framed pictures of their time together. Photos from park days, birthdays, and even family dinners with the Grays. The warmth of the room and her mother's humming as she stirred the pot on the stove felt like a lullaby, grounding her in this newfound sense of security. After breakfast, Emma helped her mother clear the table, a task she had once done out of necessity but now enjoyed as a way to bond with Sarah. They worked side by side, sharing stories of their week. Noah, meanwhile, babbled happily, throwing bits of food in the air with the enthusiastic energy of a toddler. Once the dishes were washed, Sarah turned to Emma, her eyes soft with a quiet pride. "You're growing up so fast, Emma," she said, tucking a stray lock of Emma's hair behind her ear. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Emma looked down, a slight blush rising in her cheeks. Her mother's words filled her with both pride and a quiet sense of sadness, a reminder of the burdens she had carried when things were at their worst. "I'm just glad you're better now," Emma whispered, her eyes meeting her mother's with a mixture of love and forgiveness. Sarah nodded, her hand resting on Emma's shoulder. "Me too, sweetheart, and I'll keep working to stay this way for you and Noah." Her words were a promise she held onto fiercely, determined to be the mother her children deserved. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Gray came to pick up Emma and Noah for the weekend. She greeted Sarah warmly, the two women sharing a comfortable, respectful bond that had grown stronger with time. They chatted briefly, exchanging updates and stories about the children's activities, before Sarah knelt down to say goodbye to Emma and Noah. "You both be good for Mrs. Gray, okay?" she said, brushing her hand gently over Noah's curls. She then pulled Emma into a tight hug, whispering, "I'll see you in a few days. Love you to the moon and back." "Love you too, Mom," Emma replied, the words coming easily now, no longer weighed down by uncertainty. As the Gray's car pulled out of Sarah's driveway, Emma watched her mother wave from the porch, a soft smile on her face. She felt a comforting blend of peace and joy, knowing that her mother would be there, waiting to welcome her home in a few days. In the meantime, she knew she was also heading to a place where she was loved. At the Gray's house, Emma and Noah were greeted with warm hugs and familiar faces. They spent the weekend playing in the big backyard, making leaf piles to jump in and helping Mrs. Gray bake pumpkin cookies, which filled the house with a deliciously sweet aroma. That Sunday, as they sat around the table, Mr. Gray brought out a photo album they had started, filled with memories of their time together over the past year. "Look, Emma," he said, flipping to a page with photos of Emma and Noah playing at the local fair that past summer. There were snapshots of them on the merry-go-round, faces lit with laughter, and a few shots of Emma, her face painted like a butterfly, proudly holding up the stuffed bear she had won. Emma laughed, remembering the day with fondness. "That was such a fun day," she said, reaching out to touch the photo. She looked up at Mr. and Mrs. Gray, feeling a warmth that she could only describe as family. The Grays had made a space in their hearts and home for Emma and Noah, and though the children weren't theirs by birth, they treated them with the same care and devotion as if they were. Emma knew this love was different from what she felt for her mother, but it was just as important. It was a love that had healed parts of her heart she hadn't realized were broken. As time went on, the shared arrangement between Sarah and the Grays continued to flourish. Holidays became an especially joyous blend of traditions, a beautiful fusion of both families. Thanksgiving was spent at Sarah's home, with the Grays joining them for a meal filled with laughter and gratitude. They shared stories, toasted to new beginnings, and enjoyed Sarah's homemade apple pie alongside Mrs. Gray's famous pumpkin cookies. For Christmas, the families worked together to create a celebration that honored both their histories. The Grays helped Sarah pick out a small Christmas tree, and they spent an afternoon together decorating it, stringing popcorn and hanging ornaments that Emma had made at school. On Christmas morning, Emma and Noah woke up at Sarah's house to open gifts, then later joined the Grays for a big holiday dinner, complete with gifts exchanged among both families. Watching her mother and the Grays laughing and exchanging gifts, Emma realized she was witnessing something rare and precious. A family formed not by blood alone, but by choice, love, and a shared commitment to each other. As the years passed, the unique family structure allowed Emma and Noah to grow up surrounded by an extraordinary support system. They had Sarah's love, unwavering and renewed, as she continued to build a life that was steady and nurturing. And they had the Grays, who would become their chosen family, offering stability and kindness in moments when life felt challenging. Emma grew into a confident, caring young woman, her heart shaped by the love and resilience of both her families. Noah, always cheerful and full of boundless energy, grew up knowing that he was loved by a wide circle of people who cherished him deeply. He never knew the uncertainty that Emma had once carried. His childhood was filled with laughter, security, and the warmth of a family that had come together against all odds. On her high school graduation day, Emma looked out into the audience and saw Sarah sitting beside Mr. and Mrs. Gray, all of them clapping with pride and wiping tears from their eyes as she accepted her diploma. She knew that she wouldn't be standing there if not for their support, their sacrifices, and the love they had given her. That evening, as they celebrated together, Emma took a quiet moment to thank each of them, one by one. She hugged her mother tightly, whispering her gratitude, knowing that Sarah's journey to stability had been a long, difficult road. Then she hugged the Grays, thanking them for opening their hearts and home to her and Noah, for showing her what unconditional love truly meant. "Thank you for never giving up on us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Mr. Gray smiled, his eyes misty as he replied, "Emma, you and Noah are a blessing to us. We're so proud of you, and we'll always be here for you, every step of the way." Mrs. Gray nodded, her own voice thick with tears. "Family isn't just about where you come from. It's about who's there for you, who loves you, who sees you through. And you'll always have that with us, Emma." Years later, Emma returned to the neighborhood where it had all begun, now an adult with dreams of her own. She had come back to visit, to see both her mother and the Grays, who were growing older but remained just as devoted as ever. As she walked through the old neighborhood, memories of her childhood washed over her. But instead of pain, she felt only gratitude. She visited her mother first, spending the morning with her, talking about her plans for the future and sharing stories from her time at college. They laughed and reminisced, their bond stronger than ever. Sarah had found stability and peace, and Emma knew that her mother had come a long way from the darkness that had once threatened to consume her. Later, Emma stopped by the Greys' home, where they welcomed her with open arms, their eyes lighting up at the sight of her. They shared tea on the porch, talking late into the evening as they watched the sun dip below the horizon. As Emma looked around, she realized that her life was a tapestry woven with the love, resilience, and kindness of everyone who had been there for her. She had learned that family could be complex and unconventional, but that its true strength came from the love and support that bound people together. That night, as she sat in the quiet warmth of the Greys' living room, she felt the deep peace of a life that had come full circle, a life forged through both hardship and healing, through both sorrow and joy. And as she drifted off to sleep, Emma knew that wherever life took her next, she would always carry this family, this love, within her heart.
A millionaire found a baby in a basket in front of his mansion. Years later, a woman rang his doorbell and he was shocked to discover that Ethan Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Brookline mansion, watching raindrops race down the glass. At 45, he cut an impressive figure, tall, with salt and pepper hair that lent him an air of distinction. His reflection stared back at him, a man at the pinnacle of success, yet undeniably alone. 20 years earlier, Ethan had been a different man. Fresh out of MIT with a computer science degree and a head full of dreams, he'd thrown himself into the tech startup world. Those early days were a blur of sleepless nights, cold pizza, and code that never seemed to end. He and his college roommate, Mike Orr, had poured their hearts and souls into their fledgling company, Nexus Technologies. Their big break came with a revolutionary algorithm for data compression. Suddenly, Nexus was the talk of Silicon Valley. Investors clamored for meetings, tech giants offered buyouts, and Ethan found himself thrust into a world of boardrooms and million-dollar deals. Success, however, came at a price. As Nexus grew, so did the distance between Ethan and Mike. Where once they had been like brothers, now they were barely speaking. The final blow came when Mike accused Ethan of selling out, of sacrificing their original vision for profit. The argument ended with Mike walking out, selling his shares, and cutting all ties. Ethan sighed, turning away from the window. The memory of that loss still stung even after all these years. He picked up a framed photo from his desk. Him and Mike, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning widely at their first tech convention. He set it face down with a soft thud. As Nexus Technologies grew into a tech empire, Ethan's personal life shrank. Relationships came and went, never lasting long enough to pierce the armor he'd built around himself. His parents, proud of his success but worried about his isolation, passed away within a year of each other, leaving Ethan truly alone. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed midnight, its somber tones echoing through the empty corridors. Ethan made his way to the bar cart, pouring himself a generous measure of whiskey. He swirled the amber liquid, watching the light from his desk lamp dance through it. At 45, Ethan Blackwood was a name that commanded respect in the tech world. His innovations had revolutionized data management, his wealth was beyond measure, and his influence stretched across continents. Yet as he stood in his cavernous mansion, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was missing. He was about to take a sip when a sound cut through the steady drumming of the rain. A cry, high-pitched and unmistakable. Ethan froze, the crystal tumbler halfway to his lips. There it was again, louder this time. Frowning, he made his way to the front door, his footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The crying continued, more insistent now. With a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, Ethan opened the heavy oak door. There, on his doorstep, sheltered from the rain by the portico, sat a wicker basket. And inside, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, was a baby. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered, his eyes wide with disbelief. The infant, disturbed by the sudden gust of wind, let out another wail. Instinctively, Ethan reached down and lifted the basket, bringing it inside. As he set it down on the marble floor of the foyer, a piece of paper fluttered to the ground. With trembling hands, Ethan picked up the note. The handwriting was hurried, the ink smudged by what could have been raindrops or tears. "Please keep her safe. I have no one else to turn to. Her name is Lily." Ethan looked from the note to the baby, who had quieted now, Her tiny fists curled against her cheeks. Her eyes, a startling shade of green, blinked up at him curiously. "Lily," he whispered, testing the name on his tongue. For a moment, Ethan stood frozen, his mind racing. He should call the police and/or child services or someone. This wasn't his problem to solve. He had board meetings to attend, deals to close, a company to run. He didn't have time for a baby. But as he reached for his phone, Lily let out a soft coo, her little arms stretching upwards as if reaching for him. Something stirred in Ethan's chest, a feeling he couldn't quite name. It reminded him of the excitement he felt in those early days with Mike, when anything seemed possible. With a sigh that was part exasperation and part resignation, Ethan carefully lifted Lily from the basket. She felt impossibly small in his arms, her warmth seeping through the soft blanket. "Well, Lily," he said softly, "I suppose you'll be staying here tonight." As if in response, Lily yawned widely, her eyes drifting closed as she snuggled against Ethan's chest. And in that moment, something shifted in Ethan Blackwood's world. The mansion that had always felt too big, too empty, suddenly seemed to shrink around them, becoming cozy, intimate. Ethan knew he should be panicking. He should be calling his lawyer, making arrangements, doing anything but standing in his foyer holding a stranger's child. But as he looked down at Lily's peaceful face, he felt a calmness wash over him that he hadn't experienced in years. "What am I going to do with you?" he murmured, gently rocking the sleeping infant. The rain continued to pour outside, but inside, in the warm circle of light cast by the foyer chandelier, Ethan Blackwood held a tiny miracle. And for the first time in years, the aching emptiness inside him began to fade. As he carried Lily up the grand staircase, Ethan's mind raced with 1,000 questions. Who had left her? Why him? What would happen next? But beneath the uncertainty, a tiny spark of hope had ignited. Maybe, just maybe, this unexpected delivery was exactly what he had been missing all along. Little did Ethan know, as he settled Lily into a hastily arranged makeshift crib in his own bedroom, that this night would mark the beginning of the most challenging, terrifying, and ultimately rewarding journey of his life. The journey of becoming a father, a journey that would force him to confront his past, reevaluate his present, and reimagine his future. The first rays of sunlight crept through the gaps in Ethan's curtains, painting golden streaks across the room. He blinked awake, disoriented for a moment by the unfamiliar weight on his chest. Looking down, he found Lily curled up there, her tiny fist clutching his shirt. Reality crashed over him like a wave. It hadn't been a dream. The baby was real, and she was here, in his home, in his care. "Oh God," Ethan muttered, carefully sitting up and cradling Lily to prevent her from falling. "What have I gotten myself into?" As if on cue, Lily's eyes fluttered open. For a brief moment, green eyes met brown in a silent exchange. Then, Lily's face scrunched up, and she let out a wail that seemed impossibly loud for such a small being. Ethan panicked. "Shh, shh," he tried, awkwardly patting her back. "It's okay. Everything's fine." But Lily only cried louder, her face turning an alarming shade of red. "Right," Ethan said, getting to his feet. "You're probably hungry, or need changing, or both. I can handle this. I run a multi-billion-dollar company. How hard can taking care of one tiny human be?" An hour later, Ethan stood in his kitchen, covered in baby formula, with a still crying Lily in his arms. His hair was disheveled, dark circles forming under his eyes. The kitchen looked like a war zone, empty formula cans scattered across the counter, a trail of powder leading to the sink where a bottle floated in a bowl of warm water. "Okay," Ethan admitted to the empty room. "This might be harder than I thought." Just then, his phone rang. Ethan glanced at the screen. It was his executive assistant ear, Samantha. "Hello," he answered, trying to sound composed while bouncing Lily in his arms. "Ethan, is everything all right?" Samantha's voice was tinged with concern. "You missed the 8 a.m. conference call with Tokyo. That's not like you." Ethan closed his eyes, suppressing a groan. He'd completely forgotten about work. "I'm dealing with an unexpected situation," he said, wincing as Lily let out another ear-piercing cry. "I'm going to need you to clear my schedule for the next few days." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Ethan, is that a baby crying?" "It's a long story, Sam. I promise I'll explain everything soon. Just handle things for me, will you? After hanging up, Ethan looked down at Lily, who had finally quieted and was now sucking contentedly on the bottle he'd managed to prepare. Well, little one, I suppose we need to figure out our next move. As the morning progressed, Ethan found himself in a whirlwind of activity he'd never experienced before. He made frantic online orders for baby supplies, watched countless YouTube videos on childcare, and even attempted to baby-proof his study. By noon, a parade of deliveries had transformed his austere mansion into something resembling a baby goods store. A crib now stood in the corner of his bedroom. A changing table had been hastily assembled in what used to be his home gym, and the kitchen was stocked with enough formula and baby food to feed a small army of infants. As Ethan sat on his leather sofa, Lily nestled in the crook of his arm. He couldn't help but marvel at how quickly his life had changed. Just 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been the upcoming board meeting. Now he was Googling, how often do babies need to be fed with one hand while the other held a squirming infant? A knock at the door startled both of them. Lily whimpered, and Ethan instinctively held her closer as he went to answer it. On his doorstep stood Regina Hartley, his longtime lawyer and one of the few people Ethan considered a friend. Her usually impeccable appearance was marred by a frown of concern. "Ethan," she said, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of him holding Lily. "What on earth is going on?" "Samantha called me, said you were acting strange and that she heard a baby crying." Ethan stepped back, allowing Regina to enter. "It's complicated," he said, leading her to the living room. As they sat down, he recounted the events of the previous night. Regina listened in stunned silence, her gaze shifting between Ethan and Lily. When he finished, she took a deep breath. "Ethan, you do realize the legal ramifications of what you've done, don't you? You can't just keep a baby that was left on your doorstep." I know, Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "But what was I supposed to do? Leave her out in the rain? Call the police and have her put into the system?" "That's exactly what you should have done," Regina said, her tone softening as she saw the protective way Ethan held Lily. "But I understand why you didn't. The question is, what do you want to do now?" Ethan looked down at Lily, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Her tiny hand was wrapped around his finger, and he felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. I want to keep her," he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Regina's eyebrows shot up. "Ethan, think about this. You're a single man with a demanding career. You have no experience with children. Taking care of a baby is a full-time job." "I know it sounds crazy," Ethan said, not taking his eyes off Lily. "But Regina, for the first time in years, I feel like I have a purpose beyond just making money and closing deals. I can't explain it, but I know this is right." Regina studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. If you're sure about this, we'll need to start the legal process immediately. We'll need to report finding Lily to the authorities, start adoption procedures, and prepare for the possibility that her biological parents might come forward." As Regina outlined the complex legal journey ahead, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and terror. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but looking at Lily's peaceful face, he felt a determination he hadn't experienced since the early days of founding his company. The next few days passed in a blur of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and legal meetings. Ethan's mansion, once a monument to his solitary success, was slowly transforming. The stark modern decor was softened by the presence of baby items. The silence that had once permeated the house was now filled with Lily's coos and cries. Ethan found himself changing in ways he never expected. His razor-sharp focus, once dedicated entirely to his business, now shifted to memorizing Lily's feeding schedule and perfecting the art of the swaddle. He discovered reserves of patience he never knew he had as he paced the floors at 3 a.m., humming off-key lullabies to soothe Lily back to sleep. One afternoon, about a week after Lily's arrival, Ethan sat in his home office, attempting to catch up on work while Lily napped. He was on a video call with his executive team when Lily's cry echoed through the baby monitor. "Excuse me for a moment," Ethan said, muting his microphone. He hurried to the nursery, scooping Lily into his arms. As he soothed her, he realized he'd left his camera on. His entire executive team had just witnessed Ethan Blackwood, tech mogul and notorious workaholic, tenderly caring for a baby. Returning to his desk with Lily in his arms, Ethan unmuted himself. "I apologize for the interruption," he said, bracing himself for the questions he knew were coming. To his surprise, the faces on his screen were smiling. "No need to apologize, Ethan," said his CFO, a woman who had worked with him for over a decade. "It's good to see this side of you." As the meeting continued, with Ethan bouncing Lily on his knee, he felt a shift in the dynamic with his team. The usual tense atmosphere of their meetings had softened. His executives seemed more at ease, even venturing to share personal anecdotes about their own children. That night, as Ethan put Lily to bed, he reflected on the changes of the past week. His world, Mauard, which had once revolved solely around his work, was expanding. He was connecting with his employees on a more personal level. He was rediscovering parts of himself he thought he'd lost long ago. As he leaned down to kiss Lily's forehead, he whispered, "Thank you, little one. I think you might be saving me as much as I'm saving you." Just then, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from Regina. "DNA results are in. You might want to sit down for this." Ethan's heart raced as he read the message. He looked at Lily, peacefully sleeping in her crib, blissfully unaware of the storm that might be brewing. Whatever the results held, Ethan knew one thing for certain: his life had changed irrevocably, and he would do whatever it took to protect the little girl who had so unexpectedly stolen his heart. As he sat in his study, finger hovering over Regina's number, Ethan took a deep breath. The DNA results could change everything. They could provide answers about Lily's background, potentially lead to her biological parents. And they answered, but regardless of what the test revealed, Ethan knew he was prepared to fight for Lily with everything he had. He pressed the call button, his mind racing with possibilities. As the phone rang, he glanced at the baby monitor, watching Lily's chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath. In just a week, this tiny human had completely upended his life, challenging everything he thought he knew about himself and his priorities. "Hello, Ethan," Regina's voice came through the speaker. "Are you ready for this?" Ethan took another deep breath, his gaze still fixed on the sleeping Lily. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied. "Tell me everything." As Regina began to speak, Ethan listened intently, knowing that whatever came next would be just another step in the unexpected journey that had begun on that rainy night. A journey that was reshaping his definition of success, family, and love with each passing day. Ethan's fingers tightened around his phone as Regina's words sank in. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the familiar contours of his study blurring at the edges. "I'm sorry, Regina," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Could you repeat that?" He heard Regina take a deep breath on the other end of the line. "The DNA results, Ethan, they show a familial match." Ethan's mind raced. A familial match, but how? He had no siblings, no living relatives that he knew of. "Unless it's a paternal match, Ethan," Regina continued, her voice gentle but firm. "According to these results, you are Lily's biological father." The room spun. Ethan gripped the edge of his desk, struggling to process this information. That's impossible," he stammered. "I haven't been in a relationship in years. There's no way I could be—" "I know this is a shock," Regina interrupted. "But the science is clear. The DNA doesn't lie, Ethan. Lily is your daughter." Ethan's gaze darted to the baby monitor, where Lily still slept peacefully, unaware of the bombshell that had just been dropped. His daughter. The words echoed in his mind, foreign yet strangely right. "How?" he asked, more to himself than to Regina. "I don't understand how this could have happened." "I think," Regina said carefully, "that's a question only you can answer, Ethan. Is there any possibility, any at all, that you could have fathered a child without knowing it?" Ethan's mind raced back through the years. His workaholic lifestyle hadn't left much room for relationships, but there had been a few encounters. One-night stands, brief flings that never amounted to anything. He'd always been careful, but could there have been a mistake? And then, like a bolt of lightning, a memory struck him. A charity gala nearly 2 years ago. He'd had too much to drink, feeling lonely and out of place among the crowd of socialites and business tycoons. There had been a woman, kind eyes, a gentle smile. They'd talked for hours, finding solace in each other's company. One thing had led to another. and they'd spent the night together. In the morning, she was gone, leaving nothing but a lingering scent of jasmine and a hastily scribbled note thanking him for a lovely evening. "Oh my God," Ethan breathed. I think I know who Lily's mother might be." Over the next hour, Ethan recounted the story to Regina, his mind reeling with the implications. The timing fit. The woman, Sarah, he remembered now, could very well be Lily's mother. "We need to find her," Ethan said, a new determination in his voice. "If Sarah is Lily's mother, we need to understand why she left Lily with me. Why she didn't tell me about the pregnancy." "Slow down, Ethan," Regina cautioned. "This changes things legally. Now that we know you're Lily's biological father, the adoption process will be simpler. But if we start searching for Sarah, we open up a whole new can of worms. Are you sure you want to do this?" Ethan paused, looking at Lily's sleeping form on the monitor. In the week since she'd come into his life, he'd grown to love her more than he ever thought possible. The idea of potentially sharing her, or worse, losing her, made his chest tighten with fear. But he knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't at least try to understand the full story. "I'm sure," he said finally. "Lily deserves to know where she came from, and I need to know too." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan hired a private investigator to track down Sarah, all while juggling his newfound fatherhood and his responsibilities at Nexus Technologies. He found himself living in a state of constant anticipation, jumping every time his phone rang, hoping for news. Despite the turmoil, Ethan's bond with Lily grew stronger each day. He marveled at her tiny features, searching for hints of himself in her face. Did she have his nose, his stubborn chin? Every new discovery filled him with a mixture of awe and terror. One sunny afternoon, as Ethan sat in the backyard with Lily, watching her giggle at the butterflies flitting through his meticulously maintained garden, his phone buzzed. It was the private investigator. "Mr. Blackwood," the gruff voice said. "We've found her." Ethan's heart leaped into his throat. "Where is she? Is she okay?" "She's in Boston, sir. Working as a nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital, but there's something you should know." The hesitation in the investigator's voice sent a chill down Ethan's spine. "Now what is it?" "She's sick, Mr. Blackwood. Terminal cancer. The doctors have given her less than a year." The world seemed to stop. Ethan looked at Lily, happily babbling to herself, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding around her. His chest ached with a complex mixture of emotions: relief at having found Sarah, grief for her condition, fear for what this meant for Lily's future. "I thank you," he managed to say. "Send me all the information you have." After hanging up, Ethan sat in stunned silence, absently stroking Lily's soft hair. The situation was more complicated than he could have ever imagined. Sarah was dying. She had left Lily with him, knowing she couldn't care for her. But why hadn't she told him the truth? With trembling fingers, Ethan dialed Regina's number. As he explained the situation, he could hear the sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Ethan," Regina said slowly, "you need to tread very carefully here. Legally, as Lily's biological father, you have rights. But morally, this is a minefield. What do you want to do?" Ethan looked at Lily, who was now dozing in the warm afternoon sun. He thought about Sarah, alone and sick, having made the heartbreaking decision to give up her daughter. He thought about the past 2 years, the life Sarah had lived carrying this secret, facing her mortality without her child. "I want to meet her," he said finally. "I want to understand. And I want Lily to have a chance to know her mother, even if it's only for a short time." The next day found Ethan standing outside Sarah's apartment, Lily securely strapped to his chest in a baby carrier. His palms were sweaty, his heart racing. What would he say to her? How would she react to seeing him, to seeing Lily? Taking a deep breath, he raised his hand and knocked on the door. Moments passed, feeling like an eternity. Then slowly the door opened. Sarah stood there, a shadow of the vibrant woman he remembered from the gala. She was thin, her skin pale, but her eyes, those kind eyes he remembered, lit up as they fell on Lily. "Oh," she breathed, a trembling hand covering her mouth. "Oh, you found me." "Hello, Sarah," Ethan said softly. I think we have a lot to talk about." Sarah nodded, stepping back to let them in. As Ethan crossed the threshold, he felt as though he was stepping into a new chapter of his life. One filled with uncertainty, but also with the potential for healing and connection. Over the next few hours, Sarah and Ethan talked, their conversation punctuated by Lily's occasional coos and gurgles. Sarah explained how she had discovered her pregnancy shortly after their night together, only to receive her cancer diagnosis a few months later. "I was terrified," she admitted, tears glistening in her eyes. "I didn't know how to reach you, didn't know if you'd even remember me. And then, as the pregnancy progressed and my condition worsened, I realized I couldn't care for a baby. I couldn't saddle an innocent child with a dying mother." Ethan listened, his heart breaking for the impossible choice Sarah had faced. "But why didn't you tell me?" he asked gently. "I would have helped, would have been there for both of you." Sarah smiled sadly. "I know that now, but then, you were Ethan Blackwood, the tech mogul. I was just a nurse who had a one-night stand with you. I convinced myself it was better this way, that Lily would have a chance at a better life if I let her go." As the afternoon wore on, Ethan found himself telling Sarah about the past few weeks, his initial shock at finding Lily, his clumsy attempts at caring for her, and the profound love that had blossomed between them. "You're a natural," Sarah said, watching as Ethan gently rocked a fussy Lily. "She's lucky to have you." Ethan looked up, meeting Sarah's gaze. "She's lucky to have both of us," he said firmly. "Sarah, I know this situation is complicated, but I want you to be a part of Lily's life. For as long as we have." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You'd do that? Even after everything?" "Of course," Ethan said, surprised to find tears in his own eyes. "You're her mother, and I think we could all use a little more family in our lives." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of changes. With Regina's help, Ethan and Sarah worked out a co-parenting arrangement that allowed Sarah to spend time with Lily, while respecting her need for rest and medical care. Ethan hired the best oncologist in the country, determined to give Sarah every possible chance at extending her time with Lily. As summer turned to fall, Ethan's mansion once again transformed. The guest room closest to Lily's nursery was converted into a comfortable space for Sarah, filled with medical equipment but also with warmth and life. Photos of Sarah with Lily began to appear alongside Ethan's, creating a visual narrative of their unconventional family. One crisp October evening, as Ethan and Sarah sat on the patio watching Lily toddle through piles of fallen leaves, Sarah turned to him with a serious expression. "Ethan," she said softly, "I need to ask you something important." Ethan felt a flutter of anxiety in his chest. "Of course, anything." Sarah took a deep breath. "When I'm gone, will you tell Lily about me? Will you make sure she knows how much I loved her, even though I couldn't be there for her in the beginning?" Ethan reached out, taking Sarah's frail hand in his. "Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "Lily will know everything about you. Your courage, your kindness, your love. I promise you she will grow up knowing how lucky she is to have you as her mother." Sarah squeezed his hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. As they sat there, watching the sun set on another day, Ethan marveled at the journey that had brought them to this point. A year ago, he had been a lonely workaholic, driven by ambition but empty inside. Now he was a father, co-parenting with a woman he was growing to deeply care for, facing an uncertain future but filled with more love and purpose than he had ever known. Lily's delighted squeal as she discovered a particularly crunchy leaf broke the moment. Both Ethan and Sarah laughed, their eyes meeting in a look of shared joy and bittersweetness. "You know," Ethan said, helping Lily climb into his lap, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for that charity gala. For the series of events that led us here. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it," Sarah finished for him, reaching out to smooth Lily's unruly hair. Ethan nodded, holding Lily close and reaching for Sarah's hand. As the three of them sat there, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, Ethan realized that he had found something he never even knew he was looking for: a family. Unconventional, unexpected, and facing challenges he couldn't have imagined, but a family nonetheless. And as Lily snuggled against his chest, her tiny hand reaching out to grasp Sarah's finger, Ethan made a silent vow: no matter what the future held, no matter how much time they had left, he would cherish every moment. He would build a life filled with love, memories, and the unbreakable bonds of family, a legacy that would live on through Lily long after they were gone. The journey ahead would be difficult, filled with joy and heartbreak in equal measure. But looking at Lily and Sarah, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he was meant to be. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. As winter descended upon Boston, blanketing Ethan's estate in a soft layer of snow, life inside the mansion settled into a new rhythm. The once empty halls now echoed with Lily's laughter, Sarah's gentle humming, and the constant bustle of medical staff coming and going. Ethan found himself navigating a delicate balance between his responsibilities as a father, his growing role as Sarah's caretaker, and his duties as CEO of Nexus Technologies. He had always prided himself on his ability to juggle multiple priorities, but this was a challenge unlike any he had faced before. One frosty morning, as Ethan sat at his desk reviewing quarterly reports, he heard a soft knock at his study door. Looking up, he saw Sarah standing there, Lily balanced on her hip. "Sorry to interrupt," Sarah said, her voice weaker than it had been even a week ago. But someone wanted to say good morning to her daddy." Ethan's face broke into a wide smile as he stood to greet them. "Well, good morning to my two favorite ladies," he said, taking Lily into his arms and planting a kiss on her chubby cheek. He then turned to Sarah, his smile fading slightly as he noticed the dark circles under her eyes. "How are you feeling today?" Sarah shrugged, attempting a brave smile. "I've had better days, but I've had worse too. The new treatment Dr. Chen suggested seems to be helping a bit." Ethan nodded, trying to hide his concern. Sarah's good days were becoming fewer and farther between, a fact that weighed heavily on his heart. "Why don't you rest for a bit?" he suggested. "I can watch Lily for a while." "Actually," Sarah said, her eyes brightening slightly, "I was wondering if you might be up for a little family outing. The nurse said a bit of fresh air might do me good, and it's such a beautiful day." Ethan glanced at his computer screen, at the mountain of work waiting for him. Then he looked back at Sarah and Lily, at the hopeful expressions on their faces. In that moment, the decision was easy. "You know what? That sounds perfect," he said, already reaching for his coat. "I know just the place." An hour later, the unlikely family found themselves at the Boston Public Garden. Ethan pushed Sarah's wheelchair along the snow-dusted paths, while Lily toddled alongside, marveling at the winter wonderland around her. As they reached the frozen lagoon where the swan boats usually operated in summer, Ethan paused, taking in the peaceful scene. Sarah's gaze was fixed on Lily, who was attempting to catch snowflakes on her tongue. "I never thought I'd have this," Sarah said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "When I left Lily with you, I thought I was giving up any chance of being a mother. But you've given me so much more than I could have ever hoped for." Ethan knelt beside Sarah's wheelchair, taking her cold hand in his. "Sarah, you've given us so much too. You've taught me what it really means to be a parent, to put someone else's needs before your own." "Lily and I, we're the lucky ones." Sarah squeezed his hand, a sad smile playing on her lips. "Promise me something, Ethan. Promise me you'll keep living after I'm gone, that you'll show Lily all the beauty this world has to offer." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "Sarah, promise me," she insisted, her gaze intense despite her frail state. Ethan nodded, blinking back tears. "I promise." Their moment was interrupted by Lily's excited squeal. They looked up to see her pointing at a group of ducks waddling across the ice. "Look, Mommy, look, Daddy." "Ducks." Ethan and Sarah exchanged a glance, both their hearts swelling at Lily's words. It was the first time she had called them that, Mommy and Daddy, and the significance of the moment wasn't lost on either of them. As they spent the rest of the afternoon in the park, building tiny snowmen and feeding the ducks, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. This was what mattered, he realized. Not the business deals or the technological innovations, but these precious moments with the family he never knew he wanted. The weeks that followed were a mixture of joy and heartache. Sarah's condition continued to deteriorate, but she faced each day with a courage that left Ethan in awe. They made the most of every moment, creating a lifetime of memories in the short time they had left. Ethan found himself reevaluating his priorities. He delegated more responsibilities at work, determined to be present for every precious moment with Sarah and Lily. He organized video calls with Sarah's family, ensuring that Lily would have connections to that side of her heritage. They recorded messages for Lily's future, filled photo albums, and wrote letters to be opened on important milestones in her life. As spring began to bloom, Sarah's strength began to fade. On a warm April evening, as the three of them sat on the patio watching the sunset, Sarah turned to Ethan, her eyes filled with a mix of love and resignation. "It's time," she said simply. Ethan nodded, understanding immediately. He had dreaded this moment, but he knew Sarah had fought long and hard. What do you need?" he asked, and his voice thick with emotion. Sarah smiled, reaching out to stroke Lily's hair as the toddler dozed in Ethan's lap. "Just this," she said. "Just a little more time with my family." They spent the night under the stars, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Sarah took her last breath, surrounded by the love she had fought so hard to experience. In the days that followed, Ethan moved through a fog of grief, held together only by his responsibilities to Lily. He was surprised to find support coming from unexpected places. His employees rallied around him. His board of directors insisted he take all the time he needed. And even his old friend Mike reached out, offering condolences and a tentative olive branch. As Ethan stood at Sarah's graveside, Lily clutching his hand, he reflected on the whirlwind journey of the past year. He had gained a daughter, found and lost a partner, and discovered a capacity for love he never knew he possessed. Looking down at Lily, who was solemnly placing a flower on her mother's grave, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah had given them both an incredible gift, the gift of family, of love, of a future filled with possibilities. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently, picking Lily up. "Let's go home." As they walked away from the cemetery, Ethan knew that while one chapter had closed, another was just beginning. He had promised Sarah he would keep living, that he would show Lily all the beauty the world had to offer. And as Lily snuggled against his shoulder, her little arms wrapped tightly around his neck, Ethan made a silent vow to honor that promise every day for the rest of his life. The road ahead would not be easy, but with Lily by his side and Sarah's memory in his heart, Ethan knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would build a life filled with love, laughter, and the enduring bonds of family, a legacy that would honor Sarah's memory and shape Lily's future in ways they had yet to imagine. 5 years had passed since that fateful night when a baby in a basket changed Ethan Blackwood's life forever. The sprawling mansion that had once echoed with emptiness now buzzed with the energy of a happy home. On a sunny Saturday morning, Ethan stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while 6-year-old Lily sat at the counter, her legs swinging as she chattered excitedly about her upcoming first-grade art show. "And Miss Thompson says my painting might even win a prize, Daddy," Lily exclaimed, her green eyes so like Sarah's, sparkling with enthusiasm. Ethan smiled, sliding a pancake onto Lily's plate. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I can't wait to see it." As he watched Lily dig into her breakfast, Ethan marveled at how much she'd grown. Her dark curls, so like his own, bounced as she moved, and her face was a perfect blend of his features and Sarah's. She was a living reminder of the unexpected journey that had brought them here. The past 5 years hadn't been easy. Adjusting to life as a single father while running a major tech company had been a constant balancing act. There had been sleepless nights, board meetings attended via video call with a toddler on his lap, and moments of doubt when he wondered if he was doing right by Lily. But there had also been joy, so much joy. First steps, first words, first days of school. Each milestone was a celebration, bittersweet with the knowledge that Sarah wasn't there to share it, but precious all the same. Ethan had kept his promise to Sarah. Lily's life was filled with love, laughter, and adventures. They had traveled the world together, from the beaches of Hawaii to the streets of London. Ethan had made it his mission to show Lily all the beauty the world had to offer, just as he had promised Sarah he would. "Daddy," Lily's voice broke through his reverie. "Can we visit Mommy today?" Ethan's heart swelled. They visited Sarah's grave regularly, and Ethan had made sure Lily knew all about her mother, her kindness, her bravery, and the sacrifices she had made. "Of course we can, sweet pea," Ethan replied, ruffling Lily's hair. "I will bring her some of those sunflowers she loved so much." Later that day, as they stood hand in hand by Sarah's grave, Ethan listened as Lily chattered away, telling her mother all about her week at school and her upcoming art show. And Daddy's been helping me practice my reading every night. Mommy. He does all the funny voices for different characters, just like you used to do. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. He squeezed Lily's hand gently, overwhelmed by the rush of love and gratitude he felt for this little girl who had changed his life in so many ways. As they walked back to the car, Lily skipping ahead, Ethan's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Mike, his old friend and former business partner. "Hey Ethan, we still on for the park tomorrow? Jake's excited for a playdate with Lily." Ethan smiled as he typed a quick affirmative reply. Reconnecting with Mike had been one of the unexpected silver linings of the past few years. After reaching out following Sarah's passing, they had slowly rebuilt their friendship. Mike, now a father himself, had become a valuable source of support and advice. The next day, as Ethan watched Lily and Jake chase each other around the playground, he and Mike sat on a nearby bench, catching up. "So, how's the new project coming along?" Mike asked, referring to Ethan's latest venture, a non-profit focused on supporting single parents and children in need. Ethan's eyes lit up. "It's going well. We've just partnered with 3 more hospitals to provide support for parents facing terminal illnesses. And the scholarship program for children of single parents is set to launch next month." Mike nodded approvingly. "You've really found your calling with this, haven't you? It's a far cry from the cutthroat world of tech startups." Ethan chuckled, his gaze drifting to Lily, who was now showing Jake how to do a cartwheel. "Life has a funny way of showing you what really matters," he said softly. As the afternoon wore on, Ethan found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought about the man he had been 6 years ago, driven, successful, but ultimately unfulfilled. He thought about the night he found Lily, the whirlwind of emotions that followed, and the profound love that had blossomed in his heart. He thought about Sarah, gone too soon but never forgotten. Her courage, her sacrifice, and her love had shaped both him and Lily in ways he was still discovering. And he thought about Lily, his unexpected gift and his reason for everything. She had taught him more about love, patience, and the true meaning of success than any business deal ever could. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, Ethan called out to Lily. "Time to go home, sweetheart." Lily ran over, her cheeks flushed with exertion and happiness. "Can we have pizza for dinner, Daddy?" "Please," Ethan laughed, scooping her up into his arms. I think we can manage that." As they walked to the car, Lily's small hand in his, Ethan felt a profound sense of contentment wash over him. His life may not have turned out the way he had planned, but it had become richer and more meaningful than he ever could have imagined. That night, after tucking Lily into bed and reading her favorite story, Ethan retreated to his study. On his desk sat a framed photo of Sarah, her kind eyes smiling out at him. Next to it was a recent picture of him and Lily, both grinning widely as they built a sandcastle on a beach in Maui. Ethan picked up the photo of Sarah, tracing her face with his finger. "We're doing okay, Sarah," he whispered. "And she's happy, she's healthy, and she's so loved. I hope we're making you proud." As he set the photo down, his gaze fell on a small, wrapped package on his desk. It was Lily's gift for him, a handmade Father's Day card that she had been working on in secret all week, which she had proudly presented to him that morning. With careful fingers, Ethan opened the card. On the front was a crayon drawing of him and Lily, stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Inside, in Lily's wobbly handwriting, were words that made his heart swell. "To the best daddy in the whole wide world. I love you to the moon and back, and then to all the stars too. Love to Lily," and below in smaller letters on Primrose. "Mommy would be proud of us, don't you think?" Ethan felt tears prick his eyes as he read the words again and again. In that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that every challenge, every sleepless night, every difficult decision had been worth it. His life had become a tapestry woven with threads of unexpected love, of loss and renewal, of challenges overcome and joys discovered. And at the center of it all was Lily, his daughter, his miracle, his guiding star. As Ethan closed the card and placed it carefully on his desk, he made a silent vow. He would continue to honor Sarah's memory, to cherish every moment with Lily, and to use his resources to help other families facing similar challenges. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities. There would be more challenges to face, more milestones to celebrate, more memories to create. But whatever came their way, Ethan knew that he and Lily would face it together, bound by the unbreakable ties of family and the enduring power of love. As he turned off the light in his study and headed to bed, Ethan felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had found his true purpose, his real success, and it had all started with a baby in a basket on a rainy night. An unexpected delivery that had turned out to be the greatest gift of all.